This month's podcasts are sponsored by Aubergine Legal. Do you sometimes worry that your business isn't meeting all its legal compliance requirements and wonder if you're ticking all the legal boxes? Are you losing sleep worrying about a piece of legislation that you may or may not be complying with? Perhaps you need some help with your client contracts or your data protection compliance. Or maybe you're worried that your website doesn't have the right documents or legal notices in the right place. Perhaps you have a brand that you want to protect with a trademark. How about if you could outsource it all and eliminate all of your worries? If so, then get in touch with Aubergine Legal, a friendly commercial legal consultancy offering practical and clear commercial legal advice without the overwhelming legal jargon, taking the worry away and helping you to protect your business and minimise your risks. Aubergine offers a free 30-minute consultation if you have any questions or want to find out if they can help, and you can access this link and book your free 30-minute call via the link in the show notes.
Welcome to the Bring Your Product Ideas to Life podcast. Practical advice and inspiration to help you create and sell your own physical products. Here's your host, Vicky Weinberg.
Hi, so as always, I have a really interesting guest for you today. Sam Adams is known as the Real Life Coach. She's a public speaker, a business owner for over 20 years, and she's based in Brighton. She helps ambitious people get real results using real talk, real experience and real insight. Sam is a regular on BBC Radio and she's been featured in The Independent, The Metro, Marie Claire, Women and Home, Happyiful and much more. So we had such an interesting conversation. Sam is indeed a really real life coach. She's got a lot of life experience to share with you, lots of business experience to share, and I really hope you find this conversation really interesting and inspiring. So without further ado, here's Sam. So Sam, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for having me.
I've just given you a little bit of an introduction there, but would you like to introduce yourself and your business in your own words, please?
Yeah, when you read that, then I thought that I'm not sure. I think that might be an old bio because I think I have edited it since then. But yeah, I mean, I am based in Brighton. I'm a business owner. I've had a property. I've been in property for over 20 years. I did a little bit of mentoring and speaking around property. And now my main focus is my coaching and speaking business. I also have a podcast as well. And yeah, I'm really passionate about helping people be their best selves, I guess. And I do that through, I guess, a lot of things that I learned myself. So a lot of my coaching methods are more like real world methods, stuff that I've been through, stuff that's helped me. Because at the end of the day, I have a sort of a brief framework for how I coach people, but at the end of the day, every person is individual and they are the material. So it depends on each client. And I love just working with people that inspire me, people that are ambitious, that want to be their best selves, create a vision and take action on that vision. And I absolutely love what I do, really. I wish I'd started it sooner, quite frankly, but I did property instead.
What made you make the switch? I'm just curious about that, actually. So what made you switch from property to coaching?
Well, I to be fair, I did love property and I still do love property. I guess, I did a lot of renovations and stuff in the beginning, and I did a hell of a lot of it myself. I had a friend who was a builder and my dad used to help as well. But then obviously it got older, I had kids, it got a lot more difficult. And then in 2005, sadly, my sister's partner died suddenly out of the blue and left my sister. And my sister and him and their baby were living with us at the time, just temporarily, while we actually were looking for a property to renovate that they could live in. And her partner, Tony, and I would renovate it together. And then they would remain living there and we'd take out the money once we refinanced it and go on as a partnership together. So they were just temporarily living with us. And sadly, Tony died at that time, leaving my sister with a 4-month-old baby. And, it was okay. But my girls I've got twin girls and I think they were about 6.5 at that time, you know, and one, you know, they have extra needs. Both of them are adopted, so they had extra needs. So it was a very, very difficult time. And my sister, it became quite evident quite quickly that my sister needed her own space, really. So I bought my first buy-to-let property for my sister to live in. And so that's when I kind of changed, really, my property business. It became less hands-on, and it became more about building a property portfolio, and that's what I did. And I then got into speaking at events, because by that time I'd done quite a few different strategies in property, lease options, and obviously the buy to let. So I did a bit of mentoring around that then, and I did speaking. And what I found with the mentoring was that I really loved the personal development side and coaching people rather than just showing them how to do the strategies. And I've always loved personal development. I had a small business back in sort of the year 2000 before I got into property. I had a team of like 30 people, and I loved sort of coaching them and motivating them. And so I kind of like that just got me really thinking, and I got a real buzz out of it. And then I spent some time in Spain. I bought a couple of houses in Spain. I bought a villa in Spain. I spent a lot of time in Spain, and I started to coach people online. And I thought, let me just dip my toe in it, really, and see if I liked it. And I just loved it. And I've kind of evolved and got better at it, and done some learning around it, and found kind of like, I've found a good fit for it now. Whereas, you know, it's like anything, isn't it? When you first try it on, it doesn't necessarily feel comfortable. Yeah. And you have to get used to it, don't you? And now I'm sort of used to it. I know what I do. I know how I do it. I know who I want to work with. And it feels really amazing to be able to impact other people and help them transform their lives.
Yeah, thank you for all of that. And I think you're right. You do sometimes need to go through a couple of evolutions until you sort of land somewhere that feels right for you. Yeah. And obviously that continues to change as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. Like this is, although I'm here and it feels really good, I'm still looking to grow and progress myself. And we're constantly, aren't we, you know, evolving and changing. So that's just normal, really. And I think rarely do we generally just get to that point and we stick and we fixed and this is where it is. It's always progressing and changing.
Yeah. So thanks for sharing sort of your journey so far. I mean, we know this isn't the end, but thanks for sharing where you got to this.
Where I am for now. I mean, I already know where I'm going to the next bit, so which is quite exciting. So yeah, I'm already sort of progressing. So yeah, it's really good.
And what it sounds great is that you're like keen to try things on as well, which is also good, because I think that's something that people can struggle with, you know, the trying something and seeing if it works or not. And I guess that's one of the reasons I've got you on today, is in your capacity as a coach, because this podcast is obviously for people who want to start creating and selling products. And sometimes I think that there can be a bit of a fear around, you know, people can have great ideas, but there's a bit of a fear around getting started. And one of those things, I guess, is fear of failure. So I don't know if you can speak at all, or you have any thoughts around sort of, you know, just trying something out and seeing if it works.
It's, you know, we're all human, right? And we all do have our fears and worry about making a mistake. You know, typically I get a lot of people that come to me with fear. You know, they might have a business idea or a vision of how they want their life to look, or a business they want to create. And so I guess it's similar to your audience. It's a product, right? Maybe that they want to create, and essentially that is a business. And fear is just about, ultimately fear is a story that you create in your mind that you believe. It is just a story. And I always say to people, there's two sides. There's fear, and on the opposite side of that is faith. Fear is the negative-based story, and faith is, again, a story that you create in your mind that you believe. Neither are real. Neither are here in this reality, because fear is projecting. You're thinking about the future, what might happen, what could go wrong, what mistake you might make. And the faith one is how it could go amazingly well, and the world is conspiring for good for you. You choose which story you want to create, right? Both take quite similar amounts of energy. So it's learning to flick the switch and thinking, okay, what if this does go well? Why not me? Why can't I make it a success? But one of the things I say about fear and people that worry about making mistakes is that you've probably heard this, that your mistakes and your failures are your biggest lessons. They are your education. At the end of the day, you will learn far more from the mistakes that you made than anything. Like, I know I've been bankrupt. That taught me more than anything about money. And now I have a property portfolio. Do you know what I mean? That was my biggest lesson about money and how to keep it and how to spend it. And so your biggest failures will become your biggest lessons if you're smart enough to look for them. Not everyone is, because some people fail and then they end up just not going forward and not learning anything from it. So my very first business, like I was just alluded to, I remember the guy, one of my mentors at the time, said to me, Sam, you will fail your way to success. And I never forgot that. And so I've always strived to push myself to be in that discomfort, because that's where the growth is, and to know if I get it wrong, that I'm going to learn a big lesson from it. It's painful. Don't get me wrong. None of us wants to fail, really, do we? But you have to quickly pick yourself up and think, okay, one of the great questions I love to ask in coaching is when things go wrong, and I asked this to someone yesterday who was having a little bit of a problem, is what does this now make room for? What does this now allow? Now, you can apply that question to pretty much anything, any challenge or anything you face. So I would say to somebody, if you've got an idea and you're passionate about it, yeah, you're going to feel fear. But fear is just a story. Screw it, just do it. You will make mistakes, but those that are successful and that succeed are just the ones that kept going, the ones that learned from their mistakes. There is no linear line between, here and your success, whatever success looks like for you. It is a rocky road and a very straight path. I think, like I say, everyone experiences it. I know some pretty amazing people, Olympic athletes, top motivational speakers. All of them have felt fear at some time, but what they have done is just taken their courage and gone forward and done it anyway. Perfectionism stops people moving forward. That, and of course, none of us are perfect. If you are a perfectionist, that can be so debilitating, so limiting, because you want to get all your ducks in a row before you even get started. And I'm very much an advocate of a bit of a scrappy launch or a scrappy idea. Just go with it. If you've got the vision, the plan comes second in my book. It's having that vision and having that desire and having that spark. So if you've got that, start telling yourself some faithful stories that it's going to go well, that it's going to go right. You get to control your thoughts. Your mind is just a tool, and you get to create those thoughts in your head. So choose the good ones, choose the non-fear based ones, and choose the faith based ones. One other quick thing is confidence. A lot of people think, well, I can't do this, I'm not confident about it, or I'm not confident in my product or whatever. But confidence comes off the back of action, not before. So the biggest thing you have to find within you is the courage to take the leap, to take the risk. Life is risky anyway. The biggest risk of all is life. We're all going to die. So just take the risk. The pandemic must have surely taught us all something, that we don't know what's around the corner. So take the risk, sum all your courage and step into it, and you'll try something and maybe you'll get it right. And that will give you a little bit of confidence. And then once you get that little bit of confidence, you get momentum to try something else again and have that courage, be a bit more courageous the next time. And then your confidence grows and grows and grows and grows.
Yeah, thank you for that. And that really resonates with me, because the biggest thing I would say for myself since launching my own brand of products, and a lot of the reason I do the work I do now, is it made a massive shift in how I saw myself and what I felt I could achieve, because I did something that was really hard and scary. And don't get me wrong, I made so many mistakes. I have a blog that I started must be coming up for 5 years ago now, full of, and it will take, if you go right to the first ones, you can see all my mistakes. They're still there. I haven't got rid of them, because I kind of just wanted to have it on record that I really didn't know what I was doing. But having done it is why I'm such a big believer in other people sort of doing what they want to do, and whether it's obviously this podcast is about creating products, but whether it's about creating a product or starting a business or doing anything, I think you might as well have a go, because the benefits of what it will do to you if you succeed far outweigh, in my mind, the risks of it not entirely going to plan. And I guess that's something else, I don't know whether you feel you can talk to this as well, is about risks. And surely there must be ways of doing things where you are limiting the risk, whether that's financial or whatever it is. What would you say to that? Are there ways you think, Sam, that people can sort of have a go at something without sort of putting it all on the line, as it were?
Yeah, of course you get that, of course, all the time. You know, I was scared when I did my first property development. Even though I'd been in property, I was super scared to do my first buy to let, because it was new and I hadn't done that strategy before. And I was like, do I really want to do this? You know, am I going to be able to pull my money out? And yeah, I was, even though, you know, I was super scared. But I think the way to reduce risk is through information and support, really. It's do your research, do your due diligence. I once got ripped off for 100 grand. Very painful. But I obviously reflected on that a lot. And when I was going into it, it was a big property investment thing. And I looked at the risks and I thought that I alleviated the risks. But when I look back on it, I realized that I didn't do enough. I didn't do enough due diligence. So that was 100 grand education right there. And I would just say to people it's do your due diligence on your product or whatever it is that your suppliers, your financing, research, and then get someone's second opinion, someone who's someone you know or trust or is in your business. Get them to support you and to look through it as well, to limit your risks. And the other thing is it's gone out of my head now. Isn't that weird? Get support. So like with me with property, I did a couple of joint ventures. I got people to partner up with, and because it's really hard being in business for yourself or being an entrepreneur, whatever you want to call it. It is really tough. It can be very, very lonely. And I did a lot of property on my own, like I said in the beginning, and I learned, took me longer than it should have, really, that actually finding people to connect with, people to support me was invaluable. Like even having a coach, like my when I was in property, I kind of knew I needed a coach, but I resisted it for so long. And then the minute I got a coach and a mentor, it was like the best thing I ever did. I had someone to bounce ideas off, someone to talk things through, because when we're in it, like, so if someone's creating a product and it's their baby and it's their product, it's very difficult to see all of the other things that actually might benefit you and might help you. And that's where getting some secondary advice or somebody to partner up with or joint venture with or a coach is really valuable to get that extra support. And I do believe that getting that extra support and doing your due diligence can minimize risk. Of course, there is always going to be risk, but you can minimize it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think having a network of people around you is something that I'm a big fan of as well. There are plenty of networking groups locally. I mean, to be honest, at the moment, we're recording this in a pandemic. You don't need to join a local networking group, for example. You could join a networking group for people who sell on Etsy. You can join a group for people who sell a certain type of product. And actually, I think there's a lot to be said from, and this can be a bit unsettling, but there's a lot to be said for sort of getting a group of like-minded people and asking for honest feedback, asking for honest advice, saying I'm stuck, what do I do next? Because you can learn so much from other people's experience. You don't necessarily have to make mistakes that other people have made. You can learn from other people's mistakes, and in turn people can learn from what you do as well. So I think if you're sort of just asking for help and being open to also helping others, I think goes a long way.
Yeah, that is a two-way street when you help other people. You can learn, like for me with what I do, yes, I'm helping other people by my coaching, but I learn and grow from the people that I coach. So you really, really can. I think, support groups are amazing. And, one of the best things you can do for yourself is to learn from other people's experiences, instead of just thinking blindly, well, it'll be different for me, which is easy to do. But that will save you money in the long run by going to someone that's been there and done the trail already and getting their honest feedback and seeing how they did it. Maybe I would say, if you're thinking about going into business with your product or creating it, it's not always best to go to your friends and family, because they're probably the ones.
I don't recommend talking to your friends and family, not unless they happen to be the perfect people to buy your products, but often they're not, are they? Often they're either going to be your biggest fans or they're going to be the biggest critics, depending on who they are.
Yeah, depending on who they are, but they can be very critical, and of course they're trying to protect you and de-risk you. So don't do that. I've got somebody who is an entrepreneur now, but she was an accountant, and that was the kind of scenario for her. It's like, you don't want to give up your accountancy job, and it's just like, but she was dying really in that job. She hated it. Her life was just not how she imagined it to be. So your friends and family, they do mean well, but they're not perhaps always the best place to go to get that advice.
I think so. So let's talk a little bit about staying positive, because I saw a blog post you wrote about this over on your own site, and I'll link to that in the show notes. Other people can take a look. And you were talking about sort of some of the habits you can get into to stay positive, particularly now. We're recording this at the end of January. Life is quite hard now, isn't it? It's quite grim. It's literally grey outside, and it's a tough time of year. But so what are some of the habits we can get into to kind of stay positive?
It's a really, really tricky time for everyone right now, but life is generally, it is quite hard. We're super busy. We're more busy than we've ever been before. We're our busiest generation. Some of the things that I do and I encourage people to do, my clients and people in my membership, is just, one of the key things I do is about routines, which is talked about a lot more these days, especially for business people and entrepreneurs. Generally, people think, when you talk about routines and daily habits, and I think it's boring, and they think it's going to take up too much time. But in actual fact, you're in control of that routine, so you can create one that suits you and that you thrive off of. And in the long run, routines save you time. And most importantly, right now, they keep you grounded. We are facing obviously so much uncertainty in our day-to-day lives, and humans don't do well with uncertainty. We like to know what's coming generally, and we always think that life is certain when in fact it actually isn't, but we feel like it's certain. Right now we feel it's very uncertain. So one of the things I'd say to somebody about creating more positivity in your life, it's up to you. Your mind, like I said previously, is a tool. You are not your mind no more than you are your hand. They are both a tool, and you get to choose and pick your thoughts and create your stories that eventually play out in real life. So work on your mindset, go and do some personal development, because changing your state of mind really can change your reality. What you think in your mind eventually becomes what you speak. And then what you speak out into the world eventually becomes what you see in the world. So if you've got a positive mind, you will see positive in your world. And then you will take action on those thoughts that you have whirling around in your head, and you will see results off of that. So there's a chain to all of that. And it starts, as my brand is, it starts with you, and it starts in your mind and rethinking your thinking, which is something I do with my clients. So that's really the first place to start. I would absolutely get yourself some routines. Morning routine for me is the most important one. Some people, I have a bit of an evening routine as well. And it's about it's about living intentionally. What do you want to get out of this day? What do you want to get, on a wider view, what do you want to get out of life? And then bringing that down to living intentionally every single day. Every day is a non-refundable day, is one of my sayings that I say all the time. Today is Wednesday, the 27th of January, 2021. That date will never, ever come around today. It's very precious. It's non-refundable. You can't buy back the time. Tomorrow, you're not going to be able to go back and relive it. So how are you going to make it count? And I have that thought in my head. I've trained myself to have a positive thought as soon as I wake up. Again, like I said, it's your thoughts, it's your thinking, and you can train yourself to do this stuff. I always read something positive, something inspiring first thing in the morning. I write in the morning now. I never used to. and I also journal. And again, I used to think journaling was a bunch of old woo-woo tosh, quite frankly. But now I was sort of like, I know how powerful it is just to get rid of any crap and emotions that's in my head. And I just write about how I'm feeling. And again, down the line, it's a great reflection tool to see, to try and understand yourself and to become more self-aware. And when we become more self-aware of who we are, and that you can grow from that, you become the better version of yourself, and you can have a better mindset as well. It all helps to build a better you. So one of the other things I do in the morning, which is probably one of the most important things for me, is exercise. When you move your body, you move your mood. We live in, our generation is the least active generation probably ever. If you think way back when all you did all day was try and hunt and gather for food, now the guy will bring it, or the woman will bring it to your house and even put it on your kitchen table. Do you know what I mean? We don't have to go and hunt and gather for food. We can sit at a desk all day long and barely move. But we need to move to release the nice, juicy, sexy chemicals that make us happy and joyful and feel exhilarated and have energy: endorphins, serotonin, oxytocin. And a lot of that comes from moving our body and also getting out in nature. Those things are known and scientifically proven to help our mood. So my morning routine always consists of some kind of exercise, whether that's a run, a cycle, a walk, going to the gym, can't do that sadly at the moment, or a spin class or whatever. But just even a walk, a 20-minute walk every day, like a 20-minute brisk walk every day, I promise you will do you the power of good in your mindset. It just shifts any mental drift, and it can absolutely lift your mood. So for some people, that their thing, like I'm a runner, I love running, that's my movement most days. But somebody else, meditation might be their thing, yoga might be their thing, trampolining might be their thing. Whatever your thing is, find it and fit it into your morning routine and create. The thing about a morning routine and carving out of that time in your day, and it is your responsibility to do that, by the way, whether you've got kids or whatever, if you want to be the best parent, the best person at work, to have the best business and be your best self, you have to carve out time for yourself. And I've found, for me personally, that first thing in the morning is the best time to do that, is to create that space in your diary to create your own little morning ritual that includes some kind of activity, like I said, around running, walking or whatever, as well as maybe a bit of journaling, reading something positive, or listening to a podcast for a half an hour whilst you get ready or whatever. Just creating a morning routine that sets you up for the day and puts you in a positive frame of mind. But initially that all starts with your mindset and working on your personal development there.
Yeah, thank you for that. And I'm so with you. I mean, I never used to see the benefits of that, especially because it meant getting up early. You would not believe now, Sam, how early I get up every day so that I can have some exercise, have a shower, read a bit of a book, listen to a pod, or just do whatever. I get up most days I'm up a good 2 hours before my kids, which might sound crazy to some people, but it just, like you say, just starts your day off in such a positive way because you've already done all this stuff for yourself before anyone else is even around. It's made I have to say, for me, it's made a massive difference.
I'm glad to hear that you've done it, because a lot of mums really struggle with it. It's like, kids first, partner first. But I had this conversation recently with a client who was like, I want to be a better mum, I want to be the best mum, and she was putting everything before herself. But how can you be a best mum if you're stingy with the time that you spend with yourself and the time that you work on yourself and nourish your soul? If you're nourished from, internally, then you're going to rock up when they get up at 2 hours later, and you're going to feel energized, vitalized, you're going to be joyful, and they're going to see the best version of you, and you're going to be the best parent. You'll have more patience, you'll be less stressed. So it's absolutely, it's really nice to hear that you do that.
Oh, thank you. And also practically, I've also found that if there's ever something I've really got on my mind, whether it's something I need to write or like a work thing, to have it done first thing in the morning before, because I don't really count the day as starting until the kids are up, to have it done then, it kind of just clears your mind. for the whole day, and then I feel like I really can focus on my kids, because that one thing I had to do, well, I've done that already, that's gone, and now I can just focus on my family all day, and it doesn't matter if I don't get time to myself till they go to bed, because I've already had that time first thing. I
And
think
that's the thing, isn't it, with life, you know, if you think, well, I'll do it later, the trouble is we get so many other interruptions and so many things come into, you know, we're bombarded, aren't we, these days? It's just the world that we live in, obviously less so now because of the pandemic, but you know, life is busy, something happens, Auntie Jean wants you to do this, your husband, your partner, your kids, and you get to the end of the day, you're exhausted and you're just like, I can't do it. And that's why I find first thing in the morning is absolutely the best time to do it, and carving it out first thing.
And I know that might not work for everyone. Some people might prefer to do their time in the evening. I think it's whatever suits, but I think carving out some time for yourself, particularly if you have got some kind of goal you want to achieve and something you want to work towards, I think you do have to be intentional about finding the time to move towards that, even if it's in really small steps.
Yeah, absolutely. Little small steps lead to big impact and big outcomes.
So, and along that lines, the final thing I think it'd be nice to talk about briefly is, and we kind of touched on this earlier when we talked about getting support and having a network, is accountability. Because I think other people can be a really powerful way of keeping yourself accountable. Because let's face it, especially if we know we're talking today about doing tough things, about doing hard things. Let's talk a bit about accountability. Why do you think we need it? Well, first of all, do we need it? Do you believe we need it? And how do we get it?
Well, I mean, we don't all need it, let's be honest. It depends how self-motivated you are, but motivation doesn't last. Discipline is what you need. And it depends how much self-discipline you can have, really. Most of us, we need some accountability and some support. You know, I do as well, and I'm pretty self-motivated. I always have been, I think. But when you've got a buddy or a mentor or a coach, or you're part of a support group, you know, when you put it out there to them, you are more, it's just human nature that we are more inclined to do the things that we say we're going to do. The easiest person to lie to is yourself. So if you keep it to yourself and you set your own goals and they're just in your head, you can easily lie to yourself a little bit about that. But when you've put it out there, like I say, in your support group or whoever, whether you've got a coach or whatever, then you can't get away with it so easily, because they're going to go, well, how's it going with that diet, or how's it going building that product, or getting that financing, or whatever it is that you've put yourself up for doing. It absolutely will mean that you are more like, I can't remember statistics. I think it's something, I want to say it's near 70% chance of achieving it, more likely to achieve it or do those things if you've got an accountability buddy, a coach or a group, than you are if you just try and do it alone. So yeah, it definitely does work.
Yeah, that's huge, isn't it? That's a really big, I don't know the figure either, but that's a big increase.
Yeah, it is. And it's a bit like goal setting. Like, you know, sometimes we talk, you know, I've spoken a lot about goal setting this year, beginning of this year, on radio and TV. And it's an old, you know, you think, oh, goal setting, that's so old school, but it works. You know, you're more, you know, if you put meaning behind them. There has to be meaning behind your goals. I could probably talk about goal setting for an hour, but briefly, you know, if you set meaningful goals, you write them out, and you then also share that's rocket fuel, rather than just having it all in your head, like, I'm going to lose 10 pounds, I'm not going to tell anyone about it, I really want to do it because I want to get in that bikini on holiday, but I'm not going to mention it to anyone, or I'm not really bothered if I actually don't do it. You won't do it. But when you commit it to paper, your goal setting, again, the statistics are super high, that you're more likely to achieve it than somebody that doesn't do that. And then you combine that with some accountability, then yeah, you really, you know, 10x your chances of achieving it.
Oh, thank you so much. So yeah, if you're listening to this and there's something you want to do, write it down and tell someone. Very good first steps.
Exactly. Get yourself a buddy.
So thank you so much for all you've shared, Sam. So what I would love to know, one final thing before we finish, is, so the whole point of this episode has been to, you know, get people a bit fired up if they're looking to do something but have perhaps been procrastinating or putting it off for all number of reasons. Because let's face it, there are infinite amount of reasons to not get started with something, sorry. But what would be your number one piece of advice for someone who's got an idea? Let's say it's for a product, that's what we're all about. But for whatever reason, they're just sitting on it. It's not the right time, or they don't have the time. What would be your number one tip to get people going?
I guess if you think you don't have enough time or it's not the right time, then I would say question yourself about your product and your desire to create it and your vision. Because when you're connected to what it is you want to create, then your motivation is super high to begin with. Obviously, like I say, motivation doesn't last forever. So it's the meaning behind it. Are you really passionate about this thing that you want to create? Because the desire is the thing that will pull you on at the end of the day. When the going gets tough, if you truly believe in your product and what you're doing, desire is everything. So if you're delaying getting started, or it's not the right time, there will never be a right time. That's just, there never will be. And you need to question yourself around that. And maybe it's a bit of perfectionism. Well, obviously perfection doesn't exist, and you just never get started. So I would just question your desire around it. And if you truly question it, and you absolutely believe in this, and you know that you can create something, then you just have to have a screw it, just do it attitude. You've only got to look at all the people that created different things, Tesla and Einstein and all these great people. They all had failures, and they just tested it, pulled back, tried again, failed, pulled back, tried again. But if your desire for what it is that you want to create is strong enough, you will get up there and get out there. So you have to question yourself about the meaning behind it. Maybe it needs a little bit of tweaking for that desire to strengthen. And it's a little bit of self-analysis that needs to be done at the end of the day. But eventually you're gonna, doing nothing achieves nothing. You have to eventually stick your head up above the parapet and just go for it, and just hold on and enjoy the ride. Like I say, if the pandemic hasn't taught us anything, it should have taught us that we don't know what's around the corner. So just go for it. Just go for it.
That's good advice. Thank you. And I think as well, this is something I'm telling my kids all the time, is that you can enjoy the experience as well. So even if things don't turn out exactly how you'd hoped, it's an experience. But it's, you can enjoy the process, even if you do it and you decide it's not for you, if things don't quite work out, or you want to change things. There's something especially my eldest, I'm saying to him all the time, is it's fine to, try and do this thing. And if it doesn't work, well, you've done something, haven't you? Whatever the outcome.
One of the things I always say to people is there's no happy ending to an unhappy journey. Enjoy the journey. You might have this desire to create this amazing thing, and it could be torturous. It could be completely painful the whole way. Chances are when you get to the end, you won't be happy. Make sure you enjoy the process.
That's good advice. Thank you so much. Well, thank you again, Sam, for your time, for everything you've shared. Where's the best place for people to come and find out a bit more about you, if they need some more of your motivation?
The easiest place is just to go to my website, which is sam-adams.com, and then I'm on just social media as Sam Adams Coach on Instagram. And
perfect, thank you. And I'll link up to your podcast in the show notes as well, so people can go and take a listen to that. And thank you again for being here and everything you've shared.
No, my pleasure. Thanks a lot, Vicky.
Hi, thank you so much for listening. As always, I would absolutely love to know what you thought of this episode. Please do remember to rate and review the show, and also, most importantly, subscribe so you don't miss out on any future episodes. And as a reminder, I release a new episode every single Friday. So take care, and look forward to speaking to you again then. If you've been inspired to start a podcast in 2024, I really recommend my podcast host, Captivate. Captivate were my top pick when I started podcasting 4 years ago because of how easy it was for a complete novice like me to get started. I've stuck with them for the last 4 years because Captivate is still really simple to use. They keep adding great new features like the ability to share ads like these, and they've just been really reliable. So when you're ready to start your own podcast, you can use the link in the show notes and get a free 7-day trial with Captivate.